Good morning. Welcome to the Agewell Community Council World Elder Abuse Awareness Day webinar. Today is June 15th, 2022. It is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. So I'm so happy to come to you this afternoon or this morning with these wonderful panelists to talk about an extremely critically important topic to older adults in our community. I'm Judge Diane Yaman. I've been the probate judge in Danbury for the past 32 years. And I'm also the co-chair, along with Marie Mrzewski, who is the CEO of the Regional YMCA of the Agewell Community Council. The Agewell Community Council, which is www.agewellct.org, was established in 2015. We had a mission of providing leadership and continuing to move Danbury forward. And it's a community where people can age and care for others in ways that are relevant, healthy, and meaningful to individuals, culture, and the larger community. We're made up of about 25, 30 members of council members. They're from the Danbury Hospital, Western Connecticut State University, banks, businesses, health providers, nonprofits, media, churches, and other members of the community who come together for this to implement our mission. We do not provide services. We advocate. We create awareness. We engage. Our most critical point is to be a trusted resource to our community when there's so many resources out there. The Agewell Community Council is funded in part by the PCLB Foundation, Peter and Carmen Lucia Buck Foundation, and we are so grateful for their continuing support of our efforts. I also want to acknowledge David King. He's from Community Media Studios down at Comcast Cable TV. He's graciously agreed to allow us to take this recording today and show it widely across Danbury area and local cable TV stations so we can reach the widest possible audience for the greatest possible impact. You know, our council, the Agewell Community Council, started years ago with a downtown walking tour, plans for creating a livable community, plans of congruent meals so people can come together and socialize and have optimal socialization and a livable community, and just really all positive. Then the pandemic happened. The Agewell Community Council magically transitioned into critical issues facing the community and the glaring issue of food insecurity. With partners around the table at the Agewell Community Council, such as the New American Dream Foundation, we were able to deliver tens of thousands of meals to older adults in the Danbury area. We are currently focusing on other issues, including social isolation and other issues that have had a negative impact due to the pandemic. Today's webinar on the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is to educate our community about the crisis of elder financial exploitation. So we're presenting this panel of experts today to identify, prevent, and address financial exploitations and fraud of older adults in our community. Since the pandemic, incidents of financial exploitations of older adults have had a shocking 30 to 40% increase, resulting in billions of dollars of losses. Kathy Stokes, who's the head of AARP's Fraud Prevention Education Program, she spoke recently to our National College of Probate Judges. This is the organization of probate judges across the state. And this upcoming fall, I'm very pleased that I'll become the elected president of this National Judges Organization. She spoke to us from AARP and reported that if older adults gain an awareness about a fraud or a scam, they are 80% less likely to engage in that scam. This is absolutely powerful because this awareness will change the community, will change a lot of this fraud from happening. So that is why the Agewell Community Council is presenting this today, in order to make an impact on our community and addressing elder financial exploitations. And all of you out there will learn and hopefully join us as financial exploitation warriors. you'll be able to visit our website, again, www.agelct.org, in the upcoming weeks to replay this program and also to see the schedule of Comcast cable TV programs in which they'll be represented. At this time, I'm happy to introduce today's panel, and then we'll have each of them speak for about 5 minutes. Attorney Laura Stauning, she's the co-chair of the Elder Justice Coalition, and she'll be focusing on scams and financial exploitation hotline, and also about her the Elder Justice Coalition in Connecticut, which is a very valuable resource. Attorney Kevin Brophy is a managing attorney at Connecticut Legal Aid, and he'll be focusing on the Consumer Law Project. And Byron Peterson is a Connecticut AARP Fraud Watch volunteer. He speaks nationally, and he'll be telling us all about these frauds and what to avoid and how to help us if we do get hit by a fraud or scheme. So without any further ado, we'll start with Attorney Laura Stauning. Attorney Stauning, thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge Yaman, and thank you to the Age Well Community Council for asking me to be on this panel. It's really an honor to be part of the panel with some of my colleagues that I've worked with over the years. And so I'm glad that we're able to share some of our combined knowledge and our experience and share some resources with all of you and furthering the mission of the Age Well Community Council and commemorating the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And so my task today is to tell you a little bit about the Coalition for Elder Justice in Connecticut, as well as the Elder Justice Hotline. So the coalition was formed in 2014 under an executive order that was signed by Governor Daniel Malloy. And it is a effort to encourage state agencies and private entities that work with older adults to work together and focus on the prevention of elder abuse as well as the promotion of elder rights. Now, the coalition is chaired by myself. I'm an attorney with the Department of Aging and Disability Services. And my co-chair is Mairead Painter, who is the long-term care ombudsman here in Connecticut. And our activities are guided by a steering committee. And the steering committee is comprised of public and private organizations from all types of disciplines. And I think you'll understand, or you quickly understand in working with older adults, that when you're trying to address issues affecting older adults, that no one agency or no one profession can address those problems or those challenges. And so that's why we have a very diverse steering committee to help guide our activities and our goals. And so our mission is to collaborate with one another and kind of work smarter versus working harder to address challenges that we all face. One thing that I think is a good example is that our collaboration efforts is we work with AARP and we present a monthly session on scams and frauds. This is called the Fraud Fighting Fourth Fridays, and that's done by AARP Connecticut. And we work with Erica Michalowski over there, who also works with Byron. And another example is a couple of years ago, I worked with Connecticut Legal Services, with the Consumer Law Project for Elders, as well as local law enforcement, develop a training for law enforcement regarding elder abuse and elder fraud. We have a very diverse group, and the magic, I think, of the group and of the coalition is that when we do get together, we share ideas, we act as a resource to one another, really to meet the needs of older adults in Connecticut and really make living in Connecticut something create a safe environment and really make aging in place something of a reality for people. Similar to the Age Well Community Council, the coalition, we have members from the Department of Banking, the Department of Consumer Protection. I work closely with the Connecticut Bar Association Elder Law section, as well as the Pro Bono Committee. We work with probate administration, law enforcement. We have a project in the works working with the Connecticut Police Academy to provide training to new recruits. Previously, up until this point, they got very minimal training about elder abuse. And so we're going to integrate that into all new recruits training, so they're aware of elder abuse and some factors to look for and how to respond to it. We work with the area agencies on aging, nutrition providers, faith-based leaders, and I think it's really a great collaboration. So really our goal through the coalition is to collaborate with one another to better serve older adults. Some of the focuses that we have with the coalition this year are to spread information through our newsletter. You can sign up for the coalition's newsletter very easily. You can go to our website, which is elderjusticect.org, and that's one word, elderjusticect.org. And we do webinar series for professionals to help educate. And then we're also doing a financial agent training for banking professionals because they are on the front lines of seeing some of those scams and frauds that we're talking about today. And then also the coalition holds an annual symposium. This year, we're going to have a symposium in October. And we also have some ad hoc committees that pop up when issues arise. That's another benefit of working together and sharing ideas and updates, is that sometimes we see trends that we wouldn't necessarily see otherwise by talking to one another. And so sometimes we will form some of these subcommittees to address a specific challenge that has arisen. So I think the main or the most important parts of what the coalition does is to build relationships and also to provide education. One other area that I wanted to talk about, and it was something that was developed in the last year with the Attorney General's office, is the Elder Justice Hotline. Worked closely with Sandy Arenas, she's an AAG, and Peter Brown, also with the AG's office, to develop a Elder Justice Hotline. Now, the Elder Justice Hotline is developed to assist individuals, whether you're an older individual or you're someone caring for an older individual, to reach the right state agency. As I mentioned before, not one single state agency addresses everything out there that affects older adults, because older adults are involved in all kinds of things. So they will help you if it's not something that the Attorney General's office can address directly. They will help you find the right state agency. If there's a complaint, if you have a question or a grievance or something like that, the Attorney General's office can help with that. So that's been another example of a collaborative effort that the coalition has helped to develop. I don't know if there's anything else, but I did have some other very helpful resources that I thought would be good to share. If you find that you know someone who is is a victim, either a scam or a fraud or financial exploitation, a really good resource to call to investigate that would be the Connecticut Elderly Protective Services within the Department of Social Services. Their number is 1-888-385-4425. If something arises on the weekends or after hours or on holidays, you can contact 211 and they will contact you with an on-call person. A lot of frauds and scams can be reported or should be reported to the Federal Trade Commission. They keep track of what they're hearing out there and can identify trends. Their number at the FTC is 1-877-382-4357. And then the Elder Justice Hotline, which I mentioned previously, the Elder Justice Hotline number is 1-860-808-5555. And of course, you can always go to the Coalition for Elder Justice's website. And again, the coalition website is elderjusticect.org. So I don't know, Judge Ammon, if you have any additional questions for me, but I'm happy to answer any at any point. But that's sort of kind of my quick presentation about the coalition and the Elder Justice Hotline.
Thanks, Attorney Stauning. And I'm going to urge everyone out there to sign up for this Elder Justice newsletter. I receive it. It's really anyone in the community can receive it. And we'll be sending out information to all our participants of this webinar to give them all these hotlines and phone numbers and contact information. Also, there'll be an opportunity at the end of this webinar today to go into the chat line and you'll be able to, or to actually, there's a question and answer. If you have a question that you'd like to have answered today, please go and type it into the question area, and those will be putting up before me, so I'll be able to identify those and make sure all your questions are answered. And lastly, I just wanted to say, Attorney Stauning, I've seen firsthand the good work that you do. Banks in this area have been amazing identifying possible elder abuse and have brought it to the court's attention, and we've been able to address it. So I think all that training really is going to good use. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure. And I'm a big fan of Connecticut Legal Services. I know I've worked with them many years over the years, especially even before I was a judge. So I wanted to just bring on next and thank for coming on today, Attorney Kevin Brophy.
Thank you very much, Judge Ammon. I also want to thank, the Age Well Community Council for putting on this presentation. If I had to say, like, the number one thing consumers out there can do to prevent financial exploitation or scams is to be better educated and to reach out for resources where they can learn about scams. That's like the number one thing to do. Sometimes it's really difficult when somebody has been scammed to actually kind of go back in time and try to retrieve the money if they've lost money. So anyway, being better educated is the key. So as Judge Ammon said, I'm the managing attorney of the Elder Law Unit for Connecticut Legal Services. We're a nonprofit law firm. I think some folks might be surprised, but statewide, we have over 40 attorneys that work for Connecticut Legal Services. So we're a good sized law firm. We have 6 offices throughout the state. And the 2 main offices that cover the Danbury area are in Waterbury, and then we also in the Stamford office. And what our mission is to represent low-income people that have civil legal problems. We don't do criminal work. If somebody's been arrested and they're at risk of being incarcerated, they would contact the public defender's office. But if you have a civil legal problem, such as we do the whole gamut from trying to prevent homelessness and representing people that are getting evicted, to helping people get access to home care services and the Medicaid programs that are available. We also do consumer work. I'm going to talk about our special consumer law project. We also help people if they need power of attorneys and healthcare directives. We do nursing home advocacy. Usually we're representing people that might be getting or at risk of getting discharged from facilities. So we do the whole gamut. So I'm hoping that if you're out there and you need a lawyer, but you can't afford to hire one, that you should feel free and you should be encouraged to contact Connecticut Legal Services. I'm going to give you a couple of phone numbers for our local offices. For the Waterbury office, I'm going to give you our 800 number if you're in the Danbury region. It's 413-7797. And then in the Stamford office of Connecticut Legal Services, it's 800-541-8909. I also, if you have a friend who's in a different part of the state, I also want to mention our two sister legal service organizations. New Haven Legal Assistance covers New Haven and the surrounding towns. And then there is Greater Hartford Legal Aid, which covers Hartford and surrounding towns. And then Connecticut Legal Services, who I work for, we cover the rest of the state. Now I want to talk about the Consumer Law Project for Elders. We have a unit, a subunit within our elder law practice that does nothing but consumer law. And that includes, you know, when somebody has problems with, they're being contacted by creditors and debt collectors and being threatened. We also, if they've had a problem with contractors, also if they've been scammed or they have been, their identity has been stolen. So the Consumer Law Project, again, it's a subunit, and the contact information for the Consumer Law Project is 800-296-1467. And I want to explain to you how it works if you call the Consumer Law Project for Elders. What will happen is you will not get a person when you call that number. What you will get instead is an answer machine, and they will ask for your name and your contact information. And then what will happen is within a couple of business days, somebody will get back to you, take some information as far as your name, where you live, and what happened. What's the problem that happened? And then what will happen is that information will be forwarded to one of our advocates. We have, some incredible volunteer attorneys that are like part-time staff for us, and they've been committed for years to our project. We have a paralegal. We also have an attorney on staff. So one of those advocates will get back to you to discuss your legal problem. The other thing I want to mention is, and I had mentioned this earlier, we do civil work, one private party against another private party, or we're often representing individuals or consumers if there's an issue with one of the state agencies, like if you apply for a Medicaid program and you're denied, that kind of thing. But fraud and financial exploitation is it's a crime. So not only should you be looking at, what your options are as far as your civil remedies and what you can do to try to protect yourself if you've been exploited, if you've been scammed. We can also help you get in contact with law enforcement agencies that can assist you in filing a complaint and investigating. So I just wanted to also mention that. In addition to talking to an advocate, if you have a consumer problem through our Consumer Law Project for Elders, we also have a website, and it's ctlawhelp.org. And that's the legal services website. If you go to that website, you're going to see a tab at the top, and it says age 60 plus help. If you click that, a bunch of boxes will be opened up, and you want to go to the one that says financial and debt issues. And we have a bunch of information in there about like how to order your credit reports, if there's been an identity theft, what you can do about it, a whole series of basic how to budget, a whole bunch of consumer-related financial information. The other legal service organization I want to mention is Statewide Legal Services. They cover the whole state, and they provide brief legal advice to people that have any kind of a legal problem. And again, all the legal aid programs represent low and moderate income people that don't have the resources to hire private attorneys. So at this point, I'm going to stop right there. And I do want to put in a plug again for what Lara, she's the chair of the Elder Justice Coalition, and they've really have been a leader in the state as far as trying to get organizations together and thinking through this, because it's such a significant problem. And then also AARP has been a real leader in trying to get the word out there about different types of scams and how to educate people to prevent it. And then I also, I want to mention the Western Connecticut Area Agency on Aging. They do a lot of good work, and they also fund legal services. So I want to make sure to thank them for the many years of support. So at that point, I'm gonna stop, and then I guess we're going to turn it over to the other presenter.
Thank you so much, Attorney Brophy. And yeah, we are very blessed in Connecticut with great legal services across the state, and Laura Stoning and all the good work she does with her Justice Coalition. You know, as I go to these conferences across the country and see probate courts and systems across the country, I really do believe Connecticut is really moving ahead in a positive way to really serve our citizens. So I thank all of you. And AARP, of course, is fantastic with all of their resources they give to our older adults. They're a very common and often presenter at many of our conferences, so they're a fantastic partner, and we're so pleased to have Byron Peterson on board. So Mr. Peterson, you're up next. We'd love to hear about all that you can do. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel. I think the attorney Stoning and Brophy have really kind of said a lot and kind of threw AARP out there to give you an idea of our support and leadership we have in the area of education. In introducing myself, I am the AARP Fraud Watch Network volunteer team lead for the AARP Connecticut State Office. And as Laura mentioned earlier, my partner in our crime fighting and prevention effort is Erica Michalowski, who is the Community Outreach Director for the state office here in Connecticut. Together, we have an incredible team of over 50 volunteers that are focused on education for prevention and collaboration with those who are in the elder justice profession and our advocates. By the way, AARP has volunteers around the country in every state doing the same. AARP has been working to educate consumers on fraud protection since about 2012 as part of our nationwide Fraud Watch program. And later, as we go through questions and answers, I can provide a lot of information about where to go and things that we do to help people get the tools to identify a scam. One of the things we're working on together at this point in time is to change the narrative, or some people may flipping the narrative. You know, fraud victims have suffered enough and deserve empathy and respect. So we want to flip the narrative on the way we all think about financial fraud victims. Instead of using words that are judgmental, we say switch to language that puts the focus and the blame on criminals. For example, you don't say, why are you answering this phone? Why are you talking to these people? More appropriately, you just talk to the individual and say, what did they say? What did they, when they called you, what did they say? What information did they ask for? Engage them in conversation. Don't turn around and say, boy, I can't believe you fell for it. You know, let them know that it's not their fault. Criminals are deceitful. And don't say she or he fell for the scam. Let them know that they were deceived or coerced. Changing victim blame narrative is just simply not a game of semantics. The effort can be enormous, from the individual to the societal. You know, fraud victims, can you imagine they would be treated with empathy and respect rather than scorn and humiliation? This treatment will empower them to act and report these crimes rather than hide in shame. Families will have more empathy toward victims, reducing the strain or strife caused by blame, and that would open the door for more loving support. Police may take fraud more seriously as a crime that it is, rather than viewing it as a civil matter. Prosecutors might appreciate the magnitude of the impact of financial crimes on older adults and might take on more cases. Policymakers, they might appreciate that fraud victims are crime victims, and they would do more to address this epidemic and perhaps even pass legislation for restitution. And finally, billions of dollars will be kept in our economy. Can you imagine a world where victims of crimes are really supported? Law enforcement investigates their cases, prosecutors send criminals to prison, and lawmakers see to put an end to the multi-billion-dollar fraud industry. We have the power to change the way we talk and think about victims of financial crimes and to bring needed attention and action to end this scourge. Now, our AARP teams are available for virtual and in-person conversations. For those, you can email us at ct@aarp.org. Also, as Lara had mentioned, anyone can view our Fighting Fraud with Connecticut AARP monthly show, which comes out on the fourth Friday of the month on our AARP Connecticut Facebook and YouTube channel. And the show ranges from romance scams, gift card scams, home improvement, travel, and much, much more. Our guests are some of the very collaborators with us today, but also law enforcement and people who have been targeted by criminals. They have been empowered through some of the tools we have given them to feel that they can talk about the crimes and help others to identify what's going on. And they share their stories. And the three things I leave you with is stop, spot, and share. And with that, let me stop there. And I think in addressing some of the questions and conversations coming up, provide you with additional information and resources that you can use for yourselves, others.
Thank you so much, Mr. Peterson. And your efforts are really amazing, and we really appreciate it. Based on the comments made from the other panelists, if anyone else has any other comments they'd like to make, otherwise I'll segue into our first question. We're talking about education being the most important. I think Attorney Brophy said the most important piece to stop this fraud is the education component. And so, and to Kathy Stokes from AARP's comment, if people are aware and older adults aware of a scam, they're 80% less chance to engage in it. So along those lines, I'd like to hear from Mr. Peterson, what are the top scams of the last couple of years, the top reported scams and frauds that you can tell us about?
Well, an interesting fact is that imposter scams and identity theft have remained in the top three of reported frauds over the last 5 years. Sadly, over the last 5 years, from 2017 to 2021, the last time we have the information, the amount of fraud has increased. The number of reported cases to the FTC have increased from 2.9 to 5.7 million over 5 years, and the annual losses increased from 1.1 billion to 5.9 billion. That's with a B, $5.9 billion. So, the numbers we give, I would say, as we know, are often underreported. So incidences and losses are likely much higher. And here's a statistic that might surprise people. Younger people reported losing money to fraud more often than older people every year. However, when people in their 70s or older did lose money, the amounts tended to be higher. For example, in 2021, people in their 70s had a median loss of $800 compared to $500 for people in their 20s. So that's an example of the frauds that are the top two of the top three and the dollars that are affected.
Thank you. If any other panelist wants to jump in and tell us about any of the frauds that you're hearing about, I know that the romance fraud is one that is really becoming an issue. And if any of the three of you are familiar with that scam, I'd love to hear more about that and to warn all of our viewers.
I guess I have more of a comment than anything else. And this is prior to working with Aging and Disability Services, I worked with Elderly Protective Services, and I saw quite a few individuals who were victims of frauds and scams, and the romance scams were certainly one of them. And I think that many times people, and it doesn't necessarily mean older people or even younger people, it affects everyone, that there was a level of embarrassment or shame that they got taken and they fell for something. And I think there has to be an acknowledgement that these scammers, and I'm sure Byron can confirm this, they're very savvy, and they really, are very convincing. So if someone, whether they're young or old, falls victim to one of these scams, they shouldn't be embarrassed and they shouldn't be feel shameful because it's happened to them. And I think sometimes that's a reason why things are being underreported. And I think we also have to tailor some of our responses when we get those cases. That it's also not a issue of age. It's just the reality of what's going on in our society right now, where there are some very sophisticated people who do seem very convincing and end up taking advantage of someone. So I think we have to look at it as more of a holistic problem, in society in general.
Yeah, and I just have a couple things to add. By the way, my headset just said my battery's low. I hope, God willing, this thing won't go off. But what's been interesting to me about that romance scam, we had a client who had contacted us not about being scammed, but she was applying for Medicaid long-term care, and she had been scammed the previous year. And when she was applying for Medicaid long-term care, she's the department, they asked questions about any transfers for less than fair market value, had asked her what happened. And she said she had been scammed and she had been embarrassed to tell anybody about it. And we unraveled that to get her on Medicaid long-term care, but it created a problem initially. So it's interesting. And as Byron said, and as Attorney Stauning has said, people unfortunately are embarrassed by it. And sometimes when we see the problem, it's because they have another legal problem. And then in discussing it with them, we discovered that what led to the problem they're in is they had been taken advantage of. We had another client who came into us who was getting evicted, and he was on a rental subsidy. And unbeknownst to him, his power of attorney, instead of paying the subsidy to the landlord for several months, had been keeping it herself. So he calls us up because he got eviction papers. And then, at that point we intervened. We represented him in the eviction, was able to keep him in his apartment. We were able to get the back rent from the landlord. We revoked the power of attorney from the family member who had been exploiting him. And in that particular case, he was uncomfortable with filing a complaint with the police department despite our encouragement. But what he did do, we were able to get him back all the money that had been taken from him for the previous 6 to 7 months. So again, I just want to reinforce what Mr. Peterson said. It's unfortunate that people feel embarrassed. These people that scam and steal identities are very skillful. And if you feel you've been taken advantage of, you should reach out for services. And again, you should be on the heads up. I mean, there's so many scams. There's the grandparent scam, where somebody calls up a grandparent and says their grandchild's in need of help. Don't tell anybody, but just send us money so we can help your grandchild. I mean, there's just, if somebody calls up and says they're calling on behalf of Social Security and they're asking for personal information, you should be hanging up. And so there's many different scams out there, and they try to prey on people that are vulnerable. And I'm going to be like a broken record. The more you can educate yourself, be aware of these potential scams so that you don't get taken advantage of. That's the best thing you can do.
And I think,
And I like to,
go ahead, Mr. Peterson, go ahead.
I was going to say, I like to echo what both attorneys have said and provide at least one of the resources people can turn to. First of all, romance scams are a scourge, and during the pandemic, they just multiplied they tremendously, unfortunately. But two things. First, I'd like to let people know that they can participate in the AARP Fraud Watch Network, whether they are members or not members of AARP. It's free. And that also offers a Fraud Watch Network helpline. And that number is 877-908-3360. You talk to a real person. Volunteers, some of them have also been victimized, and they will take the information, help you, and provide you with resources of who you can turn to in your state that might be able to help you. Additionally, you can join the Fraud Watch Network online, and that is, I'll give you, I hope you all have your pens and paper out, www.aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. And again, that's free to everybody. And for those who have been victimized, one of the questions that often come up is how do we empower them? AARP has a program that is called REST, R-E-S-T. It stands for Resilience, Strength, and Time. And it provides support, fraud support for victims, and also members of the families can participate in it. They have free virtual sessions. They're available nationwide, and it's a safe space to talk. And many people have come back and told us that when they got into this, they found their strength through shared experiences with others that participated in that program. And to do that, they can join it by going on to www.aarp.org/fraud support. And this will help you to get more education, but more importantly, to help support you and to empower you if you've been victimized through things such as romance scams.
Thank you. And when I was doing the senior meal deliveries, the older adult meal deliveries, there was one gentleman who said someone called from he thought from Comcast Cable TV, and they knew all his past addresses. They read them off to him, so he believed that they were who they said they were, and he got scammed out of $200. So when they get these phone calls, how do they know it's the real thing that's calling them, and how can they protect themselves? Any tips for people that are receiving these calls, and especially those that don't use computers and are relying on the phone to do a lot of their business?
Oof, this is Byron. That's kind of a tough one, but basically, if they have caller ID, when we have these conversations, we say if the number is familiar, you may feel comfortable to answer. But if it's not a familiar number, just let it go to voicemail. And if it's important enough, you have a message. Then you can determine if that information is something you might want to follow up on. And remember that if you do answer the phone, ask questions. You be the questioner rather than answering questions. Like, who is this? What's your organization? What do you do? Why are you calling me? And if it's a robocall, usually there is a space period of seconds before the individual or the computer will respond. That's one tip to recognize that this may not be an accurate call. And then do something that many of us who are seniors and mature, as I say, mature members of our population, we've been taught to trust, and we've been taught to talk to people, and we've been taught not to be rude. In this case, it's fine to be rude. Hang up.
Thank you very much. And question to all panelists, what advice can you give to caregivers or family members of protecting their loved ones who live by themselves? They're not there to monitor the phone or the mail, et cetera, et cetera. What can they do to make sure that their loved ones don't get, engaged in some improper fraud or scam? Is there anything that they can do?
Yeah, one thing I would say is they should be looking for red flags. If the person is isolated and if they notice that they're spending money on things that don't make sense, like for instance, they're not paying their rent. So look for red flags, and if somebody is controlling who they have contact and visitation with, trying to prevent them from having contact with caring family members and so on. I mean, those are kind of like warning signs that something might be going on. And then at that point, it might be time, talking to your loved one and maybe talking about that they might be taken advantage of, and there are things they can do, such as contact Connecticut Legal Services, our consumer law project, to see if we can somehow stop that or make appropriate referrals and so on.
Yeah.
Attorney Stoning?
I think one of the things that you, as a family member who is maybe not living close by, you may want to watch out for red flags, like Kevin said, one of them being, the new person in that individual's life that just happens to pop up, who, and I saw this a lot with protective services. Somebody comes into their life and you find out that they're taking them to the casino, or they're taking them to the bank and filling out the withdrawal slips. Just sort of subtle things that might come up that seem a little off. Not being able to meet their basic needs, saying that they don't have enough money for food, or they don't have enough money to pay their bills, like Kevin said, and maybe they've not paid their rent in some time, and all of a sudden they're getting evicted. If the person's willing, it's good if a family member can be sort of a trusted family member, can be have access to maybe their bank records online, just to see how they're spending their money, to watch for any unusual activities, frequent withdrawals, unusual withdrawals, large withdrawals, things of that nature, just to kind of keep an eye on things, to make sure that they don't get taken advantage of. And I think, contacting those people on a regular basis, just to know that you're there, and if something does happen, that they can talk to you about it, so you can solve it before it gets too far gone. We've had cases where people have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because they were embarrassed, or they didn't know what was going on, or didn't understand why it was going on. And at that point, it may be too late for them to get the money back. So.
A lot of these,
This is Byron.
Mr. Peterson.
I'm sorry. I agree with the information that both attorneys have stated, Larry and Kevin, because what you as a caregiver or a family member need to do is you need to be educated and get the tips to be able to recognize, as they have said, the behaviors of your loved one that may have changed. And I encourage you, I know we gave you out phone numbers, and I encourage you to contact either the Aarp Fraud Watch Network helpline yourself as a caregiver and raise these questions, or to call the Elder Justice Hotline here in Connecticut. Again, raise these questions, because you now have, as a caregiver, have become someone who needs to be educated to be able to help protect that loved one.
Thank you. And Attorney Brophy, I know that you're aware that in Connecticut, there's a statute that allows a power of attorney accounting. So any party that's concerned that there's been an accounting, a power of attorney that's been abusive, can ask for a power of attorney accounting through the probate court. Can you talk about that and other avenues to protect our loved ones?
Well, that's one thing. If somebody is concerned that a loved one or yourself, have been taken advantage of, you by a power of attorney, by somebody who was appointed as your conservator, you can go to the probate court and you can ask for an accounting of how the money's been spent. The other thing that you can do, if somebody has financially exploited you, and if you had appointed them as your agent under a power of attorney, you can revoke that power of attorney. There's additional things you should do besides revoking your power of attorney. You should be contacting the banks that you do your business with and letting them know that that power of attorney has been revoked. You can give them a copy of that power of attorney and let them know that no other person other than who you've assigned and should have access to your accounts. You can also contact the police. There's also, I just want to put a plug in, it's a little off. In addition to, if you do know someone who you trust, and you could also, and if you need help with your finances, You can also do a power of attorney where you can appoint some other family member or somebody who you rely on, depend on, and who you trust. You could do that. You can also do healthcare directives. And that's something Connecticut Legal Services can help with. And then also you should be contacting our consumer law project. So those are just some of the things that I would mention.
Thank you so much. And we're coming down on the end of our time. So I wanted to allow the panelists to each say a final comment, but also want to mention that we will be sending out all this good information, all these resources, websites to all the panelists, all the attendees today. So they'll be able to access all these resources. Attorney Stauning, final 1 minute.
I think the biggest takeaway from today should be that people should educate themselves on the scams and frauds that are out there and not be afraid to report them. And I'm also, as far as with regards to professionals that are listening, collaboration, I think, is the key. And certainly I invite anybody who works with older adults, whether it's with an agency or a private organization, to join the coalition and take advantage of some of the information that we try to share and some of those, building some of those relationships. We learn from each other every day. So it's a really, not to kind of promote my own, I guess that's what promote my own organization, but it really is beneficial. So the more we know as professionals and as caregivers and older adults ourselves, the better off we'll be.
Thank you, Attorney Brophy.
I just want to, again, Connecticut Legal Services, we're a resource for folks. We represent individuals in civil matters. We also provide advice and information. Again, please, if you have some type of a consumer problem, call our Waterbury office of Connecticut Legal Services or our Consumer Law Project for Elders. And again, our website has some really good educational materials, and that's ctlawhelp.org. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson.
I would echo what both attorneys have said. I encourage people to remember that AARP does offer virtual and in-person conversations to individuals, to organizations, to libraries. We go out and we talk about how to identify potential criminal activity. We give them the tools. And I also encourage them to go on to our helpline, as well as the Elder Justice, and I can't count them enough because at their 860-808-5555, people should be aware the Elder Justice has those who are members include the Connecticut Attorney General, the Better Business Bureau, Department of Banking, Department of Consumer Protection. I could go on and on. That would give them advice on how to protect themselves and what actions to take. So yes, get educated, but also be willing and free to help people take action if they've been victimized or are potential victims.
Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you to all of those viewers. We'll be putting this out again on Comcast Cable TV for all of you to watch again or to spread the word. Our website is www.ahlct.org. We're so pleased to be a trusted resource in our Danbury community. Thank you for attending our World Elder Abuse Awareness Day webinar. Everyone be safe. Thank you and God bless.
Yeah, bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Thank you all.